All right, today we are diving deep into one of microbiology's most persistent and, frankly, most fascinating adversaries, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now, this isn't just another pathogen. It is a true masterclass in evolutionary survival and sheer resilience.
And let's be absolutely clear from the start, this is not some historical problem we've already solved. In 2021 alone, TB took 1.6 million lives. To put that in perspective, that made it the second leading infectious killer, right behind COVID-19. For us as microbiologists, it's one of the most urgent threats we're still grappling with.
You know, for centuries, it had these almost gothic names, right? Consumption, the White Death, this mysterious disease that just caused people to waste away. Well, the names might have changed, but its devastating impact is felt just as sharply around the world today.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to follow the trail from the microbe itself to the malady it causes. We'll examine the bacterium's unique defenses, trace how it gets into the body, look at the tricky business of diagnosis, and wrap up with where we stand in the ongoing fight against it.
Okay, let's set the stage. Before we jump into all the cool cellular mechanics, you really have to appreciate the sheer scale and the ancient history of this pathogen. Its own biology is just so deeply woven into our own human story.
Just think about this golden age of microbiology. I mean, in just a couple of decades, we went from fearing this mysterious consumption to knowing exactly what we were up against. Koch pointed out the culprit. Ehrlich gave us a way to actually see it under a microscope. And then X-rays let us see the damage it was doing inside the body. This was, quite literally, the birth of TB microbiology.
And this leads us to this really interesting paradox, right? Here we have a single communicable disease that's latently infecting maybe a quarter of the entire world's population, and yet technically it's both curable and preventable. It's that tension, that gap, that makes understanding its fundamental biology so incredibly important if we're going to develop better ways to fight it.
So, what is its secret? What makes it so ridiculously successful? Well, as any good microbiologist knows, you always start with the cell envelope. And for M. tuberculosis, this isn't just some simple cell wall. Oh no, it's a fortress. It's the absolute key to its pathogenesis.
I mean, just look at the sheer complexity here. This makes your standard gram-positive and gram-negative models look like child's play, doesn't it? The mycobacterial cell envelope is really in a league of its own. We're talking about lipids making up something like 40% of its dry weight. And that's what creates this waxy, almost impenetrable hydrophobic barrier that just defines the organism.
And the star of the show, the core component of this armor, is mycolic acid. Think about this. These are fatty acids up to 90 carbons long, all linked together to create this incredibly tough, waxy layer. This isn't just why it's acid-fast in the lab. More importantly, it's what lets it just shrug off so many of our antibiotics and, crucially, the hydrolytic enzymes it's going to face inside a macrophage.
This diagram, it's basically the biochemical assembly line for that waxy armor, and it's a masterpiece of complexity. But, and this is the beautiful part, this is also its Achilles heel. You see where isoniazid, or INH, fits in? It's a prodrug. It gets activated by CatG, and its whole job is to inhibit NHA, a crucial enzyme in this very pathway. So by targeting its armor synthesis, we can effectively bring the whole fortress down.
Right, so you've got this heavily armored pathogen. How does it actually go about causing disease? Let's trace its journey, from a single aerosol droplet all the way into the deepest parts of our immune system. Okay, so the whole cascade kicks off in the lungs. It gets inhaled and then it's eaten by our alveolar macrophages. But here's where it pulls off its master trick. It actually subverts the system. It prevents the phagosome from fusing with the lysosome, effectively turning the macrophage from a would-be killer into its own personal protected incubator.
Now, this little Trojan horse act, it triggers a massive cell-mediated immune response. And all of that culminates in the formation of the granuloma. As you can see here, it's this incredibly organized structure of immune cells, all trying to wall off the infection. This creates a kind of tense immunological standoff, which is what we call latency. The bacteria are contained, but, and this is the key part, they are not eliminated.
But that containment, it's a really fragile piece. As this diagram shows, if the host's immune system takes a dip, and this could be years, even decades later, that granuloma can break down. And that leads to reactivation, which unleashes a flood of bacteria, causing active disease and, of course, allowing it to spread to new hosts.
So, this brings us to the clinical side of microbiology.
How does the disease actually present itself? And, more importantly for us, how do we confirm a diagnosis back in the lab?
It's this whole reactivation process that leads to the really important clinical distinction between that first, often silent primary infection and the classic symptomatic post-primary disease. And that slow, insidious onset of symptoms, the fever, the weight loss, that infamous cough, makes catching it early a massive challenge.
And in the lab, you can really see how far we've come. I mean, on the left, you've got the classic Zeal-Nielsen stain. It's iconic, it's still useful, but man, is it labor-intensive. Then on the right, you have an automated system like the Bactec MGIT. It's just so much cleverer. It uses a fluorescent sensor to actually detect oxygen being consumed by growing mycobacteria in a liquid culture. That gives us a result so much faster.
And this table just lays it all out, doesn't it? It perfectly highlights both the historical challenge and the recent advances. Just look at the time difference. Traditional solid media like Lowenstein-Jensen, you could be waiting up to 6 weeks for a result. That's a lifetime for a patient. The move to liquid cultures like MGIT has been a total game changer, slashing the time to confirmation and getting patients on the right drugs.
Okay, finally, let's zoom back out and connect all this fundamental microbiology back to the bigger picture, which is, of course, the ongoing global health crisis. So you can see how it all connects, right? The global mission to end TB absolutely hinges on us understanding its fundamental microbiology. Every new drug we design to hit that mycolic acid pathway, every new molecular diagnostic test, it's all born from this kind of research. And it's a mission symbolized by World TB Day, which is held on March 24th, the very anniversary of Koch's big announcement.
Which leaves us with a question to look to the future, especially for you as the next generation of microbiologists. We figured out some of its weaknesses, but this ancient adversary is nothing if not persistent. So what new chinks in its armor can we exploit next? Where's that next breakthrough going to come from? That, right there, is the challenge.